Such a wonderful thing to be able to chill out with God. It's something I don't think we should ever really take for granted, those of us that understand that and have been brought to a place of just accepting that. It's really hard. If you've never just let yourself go with anyone, let alone God who sees everything inside of us, that can be a hard thing for you to come across and do. And you know, one of the revelations that just hits my heart again and again, in fresh new ways, is the most simple epiphany you could ever have, and that is that you're loved by God. And I don't know about you, but in my life, I'm like, I've let him down again. I've let him down again, and I'm too far gone, and I don't want to go back there again. And then it's like a gentle whisper or something happens in my heart, and God's like, you know what? I still love you. Yes. And it's like, no. Almost like, oh, really? Like, just to be so humble as to go, okay, even though I know what my life's like and I know what I'm like before you, to just come under his grace and his mercy and just that he loves you is something I'm continuously growing in throughout my life. Just to let it go. I think it might be a battle for the rest of my life, but hopefully it will become easier and easier. Just to let go and let God love us, simply. You can never deserve it. Never can you deserve it. We just need to be humble enough to accept it. I'm going to pray. Lord, as we look at your word, I just need you to speak, Lord, because I don't want to fill everyone's heads with my own words that's meaningless. But we want to hear from your heart, Lord, this morning. So please speak clearly through me and in the hearts and minds of everyone here for what you want to say to us in Jesus' name. Amen. I call this message Jesus or Barabbas. Do you know the story of that? Well, if you don't, I'm going to read it to you. Where Pontius Pilate has got Jesus and Barabbas up. He really doesn't want to incriminate Jesus. But I'm just going to read now before I start going on about the story. So from John, I've got it all up there. So there we've got Jesus and Barabbas. That's off the Passion of the Christ. Anyone seen that movie, The Passion of the Christ? That's what it's called, isn't it? I really don't enjoy that movie. Do you know what? I really don't like the whole story of the cross, to be honest. I know that sounds bad. I'm supposed to be a pastor and just really... But I hate it. You know, I put a post up and I just didn't know what to do with it, really. But on Good Friday, anyone that looks at it thinks I'm indoctrinating my kids heavily and forcing them to do things. But they've captured something in their own heart with God, which is so beautiful and simple. My kids, it's not always expressed itself through the fruits of the Spirit and all these wonderful things, I assure you. And I don't know why, because I model it absolutely perfect. I don't know what their problem is. But on Friday, I'm hearing this banging and there's screwdrivers going and all this type of thing. And I'm like, oh, at least they're occupied. And no one's screaming. No one's screaming yet. Never think that. Always check. Anyway, I kind of peek in and it's like not a total disaster. I'm like, sweet, let's just keep that going. It's good that boys are getting into this stuff. That's great. I've got 3 boys in case you don't know. Anyway, I come back ages later and Samson's been hammering away for like an hour or so, trying to get a nail in. And what he's done is he's found 2 lengths of timber. And one of them's from decking, so it's hardwood. So it's like, no way this poor kid's going to get through that wood. So I help him and he goes, here. So I just went, smacked the nails in. And then there as well. And I smacked and he goes, no, in there, in his tummy. I'm like, what? I smacked it in. And then I look back and I realise he's made a cross and he's drawn Jesus on it. And he's got the blood on his hands and his feet. I'm just like, and there he is, so happy with himself, so joyful. And I'm just conflicted. I'm looking at this kid who's happy and joyful about what he's made. And I'm looking at this atrocious mess of this man that has been drawn on this cross. And he's even put little bits of red with the blood. I'm like, I don't know how to take that. And every time I read the Bible every day, right? And every time I go through books, and sometimes when I'm going through the gospel, I'm like, oh no, here it's coming again. The story of the cross. Because I hate the brutality of it. I hate the injustice of it. When I watch The Passion of the Christ, you sit in the movie theatre when it was on in the movies years ago, and you sit there and everyone's in stunned silence. Because they all like, that is so wrong. We have this justice system inside of us, our conscience inside of us, the knowledge of good and evil, and we can see what happened to Jesus, and we can say, that's wrong. And we don't know what to do with it. Because Jesus came and loved us, and went through a torturous, brutal mess, totally unfairly, and he willingly did it. That's what disturbs me too. It's like, Jesus, don't do it. You don't deserve this. You're so nice. You're so good. All you're doing is, don't go through with it. Not you. I can think of heaps of other people I can choose instead of you, not you. Yet he still willingly went through it. And he went through a torturous mess. I'm not even reading the scriptures yet. Where he was, I know I tell this, but they whipped him with those horrible whips with lead and bone and stuff in them, ripping, throwing the whip on, shredding his skin off over and over again, mocking him, spitting at him, beating him. When you're looking at this, I'm thinking, no! Yet he kept going. At any moment you're saying, please Jesus, that's enough. Pull out, please. You've got the power, pull out. Yet he goes through it and he subjects himself to the power of darkness in that sense, and he allows himself to be mocked, being stripped naked in front of everyone, and then nailed to a cross totally unfairly. And I'm just like, no. But he willingly did it because he knew that he needed to subject himself to the powers of darkness, knowing that he had not sinned at all, so that when they finally finished him off, and they weren't kind about it, it was brutal, he knew he could endure it. Only one person on the face of the planet could have endured what he endured so unfairly, so with such brutality, and that was Jesus. And he knew he had to go through that, and he overcame it and said, I've covered your sin. I copped something that you didn't deserve, that I didn't deserve. Death comes for those who do bad stuff. Like I said, I can think of heaps of people I would have preferred to be on the cross. But he was the one that went on the cross to cover the sins of the whole world. I've taken on the punishment. I've overcome. Now I'm the path to life. I've paid for it. I'm going to read these scriptures before I go on too long. Then the Jewish leaders, I'm going to focus on Pilate right now. Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas. I'm presuming that, anyway, Caiaphas, whatever it's called, and to the palace of the Roman governor. And by now it was early morning. And to avoid ceremonial uncleanness, they did not enter the palace because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover. These were those that were in charge of the temple. They didn't want to go up into where Pilate was to incriminate him because they were worried about their religious laws, uncleanness, because they wanted to have a good meal at the Passover, because they were so strict and followed the religious rules, as best and as perfectly as they could. Which is a deception. The Messiah had come. Who they'd been waiting for had come. They'd studied the scriptures. He was fulfilling all the prophecies that were foretold. Sometimes I read some books in the Old Testament. I think I'm reading the New Testament because it's like I read Isaiah, Old Testament. I'm reading all about Jesus. Hang on, that's right. I'm still in the Old Testament. It's all prophesied. Jesus came to fulfill it all. They were so hard, but they were so hard against the truth, the deep truth. That they were willing to do everything religiously around it, but they weren't willing to face the core of it all, the truth. If he were not a criminal, they replied, we would have handed him over to you. Pilate said, take him yourselves and judge him by your own law. You see, Pilate's wife had already warned him in a dream, like, don't have anything to do with this man. I've been tormented in a dream. Do not have anything to do with this man. So he's like, okay, yeah, you sort him out. But we have no right to execute anyone, they objected. This took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. And Pilate went back inside the palace and he summoned Jesus and he asked him, Are you the king of the Jews? See, Jesus had been questioned and questioned and questioned by King Herod, questioned and questioned and questioned by the religious rulers of the time. Yet he didn't give them the answer. He often just remained absolutely silent because he knew he was not talking to anyone's heart. You know, Jesus is not interested in talking to your intellect all the time. He is, but it's unless there's some level of connection to your heart and who you really are, if you're just debating him for debating's sake, he's not going to have anything to do with that. There was a Samaritan woman in the Bible, in the world, who had this, Jesus, saw the Samaritan woman. First of all, as a Jewish man, you never saw like a woman by herself, and let alone a Samaritan who was despised by their race. But anyway, Jesus had a chat to her, and they're debating about where you should worship. Should you worship on the mountain or in the temple? And the woman saying, your people say this, but we say that, blah, blah. And I think Jesus is a bit over it. He goes, listen, I know about you. You've had 5 husbands. And the one that whoever you're living with right now is not even your husband. And it whoa, got to it. Finally, you're talking about something real. They're debating religious rules and laws and rah, rah, and Jesus goes, hang on a minute. I know you. I know your heart. Let's talk about that. You can worry about this other stuff, whatever. But let me get to your heart. That's the foundation. And so the religious rulers and King Herod, they just wanted performance by Jesus. They wanted to debate him, but they weren't allowing Jesus to get to their heart. But here it's interesting. Jesus starts answering questions to not even a Jew or a religious person at all. He starts talking to Pontius Pilate. Are you the king of the Jews? Is that your own idea? Jesus asked. Or did others talk to you about me? Am I a Jew? Pilate replied. Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it that you've done? And he keeps engaged in this conversation. Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place. It's interesting in 1 Timothy, it reveals that he had more of a conversation than what's actually recorded. It's really interesting. You are a king, then, said Pilate. Jesus answered, you say that I'm a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me. What is truth? Retorted Pilate. He was so over-politicised by the system he was under. The difficulty it was to appease the Jews and appease the Roman rulers and getting it. He was like, what is truth? He hears everyone's agendas all the time. He's over it. What is truth? That's a good place to start. When you get yourself out of the rat race of life and you realise what's going on around. What is truth? I recently had that kind of experience again. We had an investment property from when we moved from New South Wales, and we wanted to sell it and come out clean for so many years, but we just found out recently it's gone up heaps. Oh, that's handy. We just held on to it enough. It's gone up. So, if we sold it soon, we'd probably be $100 grand ahead that we could put into our current home loan. We couldn't afford to sell it when we bought it because we were stuck. And it was interesting what was going on in my head, because I love the finance game and stuff. It's just interesting to me. Some people don't like it and whatever, as long as it doesn't grip your heart. Anyway, I looked at it and I realised, okay, now I'll put that in there. How many years left have I got to pay off the loan? And then once I've paid off the loan, what do I do now? Then I've got to build up for my retirement. I'm like, something about that was just like, what's the point of life? Well, now I'm financially secure. I'm like, what's next? Because you get deceived into thinking you're chasing something, and then you die. It's like, what was that all about? You finally got enough money to live, and then you die. What was that all about? What's the truth? So I had that kind of experience, like, what is all this? And Pilate's like, what's the truth? And with this he went out against the Jews and gathered there and said, I find no basis for a charge against him. But it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of the Passover. Do you want me to release the king of the Jews? They shouted back, no, not him. Give us Barabbas. Now Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. And he'd killed someone in the process. This is one of my main points I want to say here. Barabbas. Bar. Every time you see bar in the Bible, it's son of somebody. Abba, Father God. Barabbas, Son of God. That's what his name means. Son of God. And he was involved in an uprising against the Roman government to free the Jewish people. Now, if you know the scriptures at all, there was times where Jesus had literally thousands of people following him, and he sensed in his heart, they're going to try and set me up as king. And he withdrew and got away, because he wasn't any part of that way of doing things. So here we've got them yell out for the freedom of another prisoner. It wasn't even Pilate's idea. Hey, I can release a prisoner. How about I release you? No. Release the Son of God, Barabbas, what we want, that was involved in an uprising. The one that were attempted to save our people. And so here we've got this picture of something that looks a little bit like Jesus. It's kind of functioning like they thought Jesus should have functioned like. Kind of operating, and even carrying the same name, in a sense, of Jesus. And it's not quite there, but it ticks all the boxes. And they're saying, no, we want that instead. And I don't know about you, but even in my Christian walk, sometimes I'm like, it's too hard, to be open with God all the time and to deal with my sin. And I don't want to go there again. It just feels, even though it's not, it feels too hard. So the good things I'm doing in life, that's enough. That's enough. Okay? It's pretty good. Actually, if I compare it to somebody else's life, I'm doing pretty good. Don't we do that? If we can't handle the constant coming to God and being open, we get our hearts hard and we get a bit proud. We're like, I just want to shut that out. I'll do good stuff, like Jesus said. I will do these things, and that's good because God's into all the good stuff that we do, give to the poor, and do different nice things for people. Yeah, I'll choose that, and then I'm still in control. And by comparison, I'm pretty good. And so the Pharisees and the teachers of the religious law picked Barabbas. The people picked Barabbas, something that was kind of ticking the boxes, but wasn't the deep truth. What's your Barabbas that you're tempted into living in your Christian walk or in your life? It's, it's there. And when I look at that, I go, I never would have chosen Barabbas. I'm not one of those people. But when I look at it like that, I'm like, really, where am I at? Am I settling? Like, we support in part ministries, 10% of everything that comes in, whether it be building fund or whatever, for this financial year, we're just giving to Impart Ministries, which is being directed towards Chandigarh in northern India, where it's incredibly hard to be a Christian. And they're sending out young pastors to transform communities, help people, train women to be able to earn an income so they're out of this cycle of being treated like dirt. They're really transforming communities from top to bottom, left to right, and they're planting a church at the same time. And they have committed to living or dying, but they've taken on a martyr's oath that even if we die for what we're doing, this is what we're doing. And we think, I'm not going that far. I wouldn't go that far. Come on, let's have it all in balance. And we get deceived into thinking about what it is to have Jesus. We do what Adam and Eve did. Once their eyes were opened to sin, to good and evil, the instinct was for them was to hide from God, to cover themselves and hide. And when we get confronted with a pure love that's represented on the cross, it's hard to take because it just exposes every wrong thing in you. It exposes the deeply embedded stuff in our heart and it just lets it out because it's so unfair for Jesus. We cannot compare ourselves to him. We can do it to others. We can't compare ourselves to him, and it just exposes, that pure love exposes. And that can become uncomfortable. But the whole reason why Jesus did that was to engage in our hearts deeply, like he used to walk around in the cool of the day with Adam and Eve hanging out, loving them loving them, having an awesome relationship. And yet, when sin entered, they just wanted to hide. Don't hide. Jesus said he has come to give life and life to the fullest. He knows who you are. The reason why this church is called Freedom Church is because a passion is that every single person grows in who they were always meant to be. We come up and with a distorted version of ourselves to survive in life, but God wants what's best for us, to shine and to grow and to be children of light and to be free. And the very things we hold on to that we think is our security in this world is actually to our detriment, and it chokes who we really are. Who we are is found in our Creator. He unlocks who we are. There's a child, we need to come to him like a little child. That's what Jesus says. Unless you can come to me like a little child, you have no part with me. Unless you can come openly, with an open heart, and come to him and be like my youngest son Samson, who wants to take a photo, not a selfie because I was taking it, holding Jesus' hand on the cross. Unless you can come with that purity and acceptance, like, we can't enter. So God has called us to be free. Anyway, then Pilate took Jesus, had him flogged. And I've described that experience. It sounds nice just to say it in a sentence. Actually have his skin ripped off his body, his muscles exposed. That's how aggressive those 39 whips were. So the soldiers twisted a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They put a purple robe on him and they went up to him again and again saying, "Hail, King of the Jews." And they slapped him in the face. And once more Pilate came out and said to the Jews gathered there, "Look, I'm bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no basis for a charge against him." And when Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, "Here is the man. Look." It was a severe punishment. You could see it. He'd been abused. He'd been humiliated. Isn't this enough? Pilate, allowed a lot to go on to try and get out of having him killed. As soon as the chief priests and the officials saw him, they shouted, "Crucify! Crucify!" From deep within, when the light of the world is exposed on this world, they're like, "Kill it off! Get it away from me! Get it away from me!" But Pilate answered, "You take him and crucify him. As for me, I find no basis for a charge against him." Then the Jewish leaders insisted, "We have a law, and according to that law he must die, because he claimed to be the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid. Something was going on. Jesus doesn't dialogue with you unless you have an open heart. So something was going on in his heart. He retorted what's the truth, but something was going on deep within him as he was interacting with Jesus. And he went back inside the palace. "Where do you come from?" he asked Jesus. But Jesus gave him no answer. He knew exactly when to stop talking. "Do you refuse to speak to me?" Pilate said. "Don't you realise I have the power to either set you free or to crucify you?" And Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." From then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free. But the Jewish leaders kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone claims to be a king opposes Caesar." Now they're showing their allegiance to Caesar, the law. They're throwing their allegiance to anything and anyone. Even though they're releasing Barabbas, someone that killed someone in an uprising against the Roman rulers, now they're saying, "You can't do that." They're saying, "What's going on with Pilate, man? What is he doing?" So they're going, "Oh, Pilate, remember Caesar that we're all supposed to respect? We respect him too now for this moment. Whatever way to get him killed." When Pilate heard this, he brought Jesus out and he sat down on the judge's seat at the place known as the stone pavement, which in Arabic is Gabbatha. It was the day of preparation of the Passover. It was about noon. "Here is your king," Pilate said to the Jews. Still, it wasn't buying it. Still, "We have no king but Caesar." The chief priests answered. Do you know what? They could have been incriminated and crucified at that point. They just blasphemed according to their law. So they themselves are now guilty of the crime they were trying to put on Jesus. Finally, Pilate handed him over to be crucified. And in other Gospels it says he washed his hands as a symbol of, "I'm washing my hands of this." That's where the saying comes from. Washing your hands of it. I'm no part of this. So the soldiers took charge of Jesus. Carrying his own cross, he went out to the place of the skull, which in Aramaic is Golgotha, where they crucified him. And with him 2 others, one on each side and Jesus in the middle. There's an interesting conversation even there in other Gospels, because there's 4 Gospels, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. We had a conversation with a couple of the criminals there. One saying, who do you think, just mocked him. The other one goes, look, we deserve this. Jesus, can you remember me? From his heart, he's dying. He's a dying man. He knows he's done wrong. That's the first place to come to. Look, we're guilty. He's not guilty. Even the criminals could unsee what was going on. Pilate could see what was going on. The very religious people didn't really see what was going on. And they were in a frenzy themselves. And he reached out to Jesus and goes, Jesus, can you remember me when you were in paradise? And Jesus said, today I will be with you in paradise. I've heard all sorts of things about Jesus going to hell and whatever like that. But that day, Jesus said he was going to paradise and he was going to see him there with him. Because that guy, even though he knew he was a criminal, well, I don't know what he had done, but he knew he deserved to be on the cross. So he accepted that punishment. He must have been pretty bad. He said, he reached out to Jesus. That Jesus had a really good end of the day, that day, with him. And the soldiers, they took charge. And Pilate had a notice prepared and fastened it to the cross, and it read, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. Many of the Jews read this sign. For the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and the sign was written in Aramaic, Latin and Greek. The chief priests of the Jews protested to Pilate, do not write the King of the Jews, but that this man claimed to be the King of the Jews. And Pilate answered, what I've written, I've written. It's like, we're not going to debate that. You're not going to pull me into your little games with that. It's just what it is, all right? So for Pilate, he was like, no, he is the King of the Jews. He was freaked out when he claimed he was Son of God. He didn't go, what a kook. He's saying he's the Son of God? He's a lunatic. Something was going on in his heart. It's like, oh my. This is real. And so Pilate was a whole lot more close to the heart of Jesus than the many religious people ticking all the boxes around him. You can know the Bible inside out. You can look like you're being awesome. You can look like Barabbas. You're trying to rescue the people. You've got the right name. But only you and only I know how far our heart is really away from God. And the sad thing is, we think we're protecting ourselves when we're actually slowly killing ourselves the more we disconnect from our Creator. And the cool thing is, when Jesus died on the cross, the curtain in the temple, the Holy of Holies, is in there. And you can only go in there with lots of sacrificing of animals. Things had to die to cover sin. The penalty of sin was death. And that death process had to go. And then they could come in and get into the Holy of Holies where the presence of God was. When Jesus died on the cross, that curtain was ripped from top to bottom. It was a thick curtain, thick, releasing God's presence to all of us. So the thing is, it's not a long way to God, actually. Jesus' sacrifice on the cross was that powerful that in a moment we could connect with him even now. You might have been a Christian all your life, but your heart's far from him. Let's say to the Barabbas inside of us, get lost. I want to come fresh. I want to be full of life. I want to live with purpose. I want to be with my Creator, kick on with him. Life in all of its abundance. And it's hard when you're surrounded by this society. The rich young man there's a story about a rich young man came to Jesus. He goes, Jesus, I've done all the law since I was of age. I've done it all, Lord. I've followed all the laws. I've done all this, the religious stuff. I've done it. And he said, just one thing you lack. Just sell everything you've got. Give it to the poor and come and follow me. And he's like, and he went away sad. Because Jesus knew something was gripping onto his heart. He ticked the boxes. I've done everything. He even was on his knees in front of Jesus. But Jesus is saying, yeah, that's great. Just give me your heart.